Who's gonna pick you up?
They are not buying him out, bro.
You never know, man. If he
they traded Harden because they didn't want to pay the luxury tax. Melo's owed $28 million next year. There's no way they're giving him that money to walk.
You never know, man. If he says he doesn't want to come off the bench, they might fight. They might fight him for that. So I don't know, man. It's just that, and then
maybe they fire Billy Donovan and they get a new coach that could integrate him into the starting lineup properly.
I mean, that could be another option too. I mean, I'm kind of with him with, I wasn't put in the best position because I don't think Billy Donovan did the best with that offense. But at the same time, it's like, when you had your opportunities, you didn't deliver.
Right.
He shot the ball like crap, man. So I mean, you can't come out with those type of statements when you really you weren't efficient at all. I mean, that's my only strike with him.
It's kind of speaks volumes, and it's exaggerated in the playoffs, and it's exposed because he's always been a volume shooter. So now, being that he's still inefficient, 7 for 18 looks much better than 1 for 7. So when you see those stat lines, you're like, well, Melo didn't produce, but at the same time, it's like, did he even have a chance, going into the game? Like, he's sacrificed so much, and I must commend Melo for that. He's taken the back seat. He was basically relegated to a catch and shoot player that he's never been his whole career. Obviously, yes, he has had to catch and shoot sometimes if he had a good point guard and he can trail the play and things of that nature. But Melo's used to the offense running through him, at least, getting a mismatch on the block. And a lot of that, has to be said with Russell Westbrook too, his style of play, because a lot of the times, it's Russ or die. And with that mentality, your teammates aren't really touching the ball. So when Russ sprints up the court and pulls for mid-range and misses, and the other team comes down and they lay the ball up, they get a fast break on the other end, all of those seem like empty possessions for Melo. On top of the possessions where, Russ might come up and pass it to PG, and then PG's taking the shots. It was almost like a 5, 6, 7 to 1 ratio where other players would get shots and then Melo would get a shot. So, to his credit, he was never really in a rhythm, to kind of have that going. And I think it sucks. Like, he was just placed in a position where it would have been really tough to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. It's just, the statements are just wild, man. And I feel like, you can say that if, you had a better season and a better shooting the ball during the playoffs, man. But if you're 6 for 28 from the 3-point line in the playoffs, I don't want to hear that you wasn't put in the best position. I just can't.
I feel like I hear you, and I feel like his statement about, they didn't have, he had a statement today, I think, where it was like, there was no plan for me being here. Like, not they didn't plan for him to be there, but with him coming to the team, they had no plan of how to incorporate him into the system. And I think that's actually more wild than him saying he's not coming off the bench, because I get it. You feel like you weren't in the best position and you feel like you have a lot left in the tank. And me personally, I think Melo still has a lot left in the tank. But I don't know that, exposing his organization to that level can bode well, especially for the future. And you're playing with guys like Russ and you're playing with guys like PG. So now the question starts looming, like, are we going to keep Billy as head coach? And then once that's figured out, how are we going to incorporate Melo? Because now, PG has to make a decision. Is he going to stay with OKC or is he going to leave? Now, Melo's clearly disgruntled. He's definitely going to pick up that $28 million contract. So it's like, off the jump, you can't go into next season playing the same way that you did this season.
Oh, definitely. I mean, and I don't think he has no choice but to pick up that option, because I don't, to be honest, and I love Melo to death, but I don't think there's a market for him out there. Nobody is scratching at the door like, oh, we got to get this guy. Especially when he's coming out saying he's not coming off the bench. Listen, man, if Wade can humble himself and come off the bench, why can't you? You've won less than any of the guys that came in the draft with you. I don't get it.
That's true. And we've brought up the point before about Melo playing with that bench unit, or and basically kind of simulating what he's used to in his previous years in his career. And I feel like that wasn't exploited enough. Even when he did play with the bench, I don't know that there was necessarily a system, but the shots that he was getting was definitely not as frequent as they used to be. So even if he played with the bench team, it's not like his role was the same. So overall, it was a tough year. It was definitely a bad year, inefficient, and it puts him in a position for people to say, he's getting old. And there were some plays where he didn't look the same anymore. Like, I want to say it was either game 4 or game 6. I'm pretty sure they lost that game, but I believe he had Derek Favors guarding him on the low block. He up-faked, went around him, went up for a layup. I think he hit like the bottom of the rim, went up for a rebound, and he got fouled, but like the ball didn't even hit the rim on the second attempt. And I'm like, what am I witnessing? And being that Melo's one of my favorite players of all time, it's sad to see at this point.
Listen, man, it's at that point where you just ain't got it like you used to. Like, your mind is telling you, oh, I'm about to go to the basket and do this, but your body is like, nah, man, it just ain't happening. But listen, I'm gonna leave you with this stat right here, right? For the playoffs, mind you, it was only 6 games, but 4 to 6 feet open from 3. He was 3 for 15, 6 plus feet wide open. They're considering that wide open. He's 3 for 11. So I mean, that says it all, man. You can't complain when you're breaking wide open.
Series. I mean,
wide open
11
shots
isn't a great sample size. And they went 6 games. That's what, like 2 a game, like 1.5 a game. So,
but we're talking about wide open shots. These are considered wide open. So the closest defender is beyond 6 feet from him.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely shoot. I want to say you can at least shoot 45%. Like,
so I mean, that says it all to me right there. You got to deliver. You got to.
Best case scenario for Melo next season.
Honestly, returning to OKC, because I don't think there's anywhere else that he can really go at this moment. He has to prove himself next year, in my opinion.
Definitely agreed. I think there's only one place Melo can go, and that's to play with LeBron. And I think LeBron could, make that case to have Melo. Maybe not, and if it's not as a starter, maybe he does convince Melo to come off the bench. But I think that might be I lied. Maybe either with LeBron or going to Houston and playing with those boys down there. But he has a better chance of starting, in Cleveland if that's what his heart truly desires, than to go with Houston, because I don't think Daryl Morey or D'Antoni is messing up that system, especially since him and D'Antoni have a past.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, Melo and OKC overall, they got some things to handle this off season, so it's going to be interesting how this all buckles down come off season.
For sure. Portland and Washington, who needs to break up the... Now, I don't want to say backcourt. Who needs to break up the team more and why?
I'm going to say... I say Washington more than Portland because... Yeah, I'd say Washington more than Portland because I think they've been at this longer than Portland has in the same... They've just been hitting the same dead spot every time, and they just can't get past it. And especially with the back and forths that are going on between, a couple guys on their team, especially between Gortat and Wall, it's just, you can tell that guys aren't getting along. So I think it's time that, they separate and break it all up in Washington.
I'm going to be boring and predictable and say they both need to break it up equally.
Oh, I definitely think they both need to break it up. But if I got to pick one, I'm picking Washington. But I think they both need to break it up.
I feel like I'm picking Portland, though, because although Washington hasn't, gotten over the hump, I still feel like they have some sort of a makeup to kind of... I feel like they have some type of core to build around. Like, Bradley Beal and John Wall are still relatively young. Otto Porter, if he comes back next year healthy, maybe you flip Gortat, and get another piece. Oubre's good, but Portland, I know they just got Nurkic last year, but I'm not sure what else they can do with the current roster to get over the hump of those juggernauts out west. And the thing is, I'm always wary to say blow it up, because when you say blow it up, it's like, okay, then for what? For who? Blow up to me always means rebuild, because you're never going to get equal value for, the star that you're trading away. Unless you do something like Portland and Washington pick up the phone, call each other, and do like a Damian Lillard for John Wall straight up. That's the only way that you can kind of compensate. But when you have, those teams kind of looking to get in the playoffs or like right on the cusp, you're essentially getting draft picks and role players to so that the salary can match and that the trade could look even. So it's really interesting and kind of difficult, but I would probably lean Portland.
Yeah, I don't know. I think to me they both gotta. I mean, to me it's just like, how long do you keep hitting the same road? I mean, the same stop, and you're just like, all right, I've had enough of it. So, I mean, that with the blowing it up comes, starting all over and rebuilding. So, I mean, you know what comes with that when you get into it. So, I don't know.
Maybe
we can both say that changes need to be made, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. And with that being said, kind of like on that tangent of blowing it up and rebuilding, I mentioned the two juggernauts out west. Who has a longer, I guess, potential lifespan between Houston and Golden State? Like, I feel like Golden State's run can be over quickly.
Why do you say that?
I just feel like they're gonna they cannot pay the 4 All-Stars moving forward, right? And I think whose contract comes up first? Is it Clay or is it Draymond?
They might be in the same year, but I don't know Draymond's situation, but I know for a fact Clay is a free agent after the next season.
I feel like they would probably be better off keeping Clay and trading Draymond. And I say that because Draymond is obviously not a scorer. He's like your jack of all trades, right? Do it all guy. He's inconsistent from 3, but I mean, playing with Golden State, he'd make you think he's like a 50% 3-point shooter sometimes. He plays defense and he can distribute the ball. He can handle the ball. But Draymond is very much so a product of that Golden State team. And I think they need to trade high and kind of get the most value for Draymond that they possibly can. Like, look, his value is not going to get any higher than it is right now. Like, that's basically point back period. Like, to me, Draymond overall has peaked. He may be in this form for a few years, but I don't know that there's going to be much more that he can do. Like, let's face it, he's an undersized power forward. So the defense could be there, but it's not like you're giving Draymond the ball in the post, to operate out of there. So I feel like they could end up trading him, to save some money and kind of re-sign Clay. But I feel like with the emergence of Houston, they're right on their tails. And I feel like, maybe like a team like Utah or Minnesota can grab another piece and they'll be right there. So as far as like their dominance goes, I think that could be over relatively soon.
I don't know. That's an interesting point, because when I think about Houston, the reason I would say their run is not going to last that much longer either is just because Chris Paul is getting old. He's 15 years in too?
That's true. Did he come? No, Chris Paul wasn't in the LeBron draft.
I think he was like a year or two after. It wasn't that long after. So, I mean, he's been in the NBA for a while now. So I mean, he's getting up there in age too. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, Golden State. I mean, you made a good point, because I truly believe they're gonna have to pick between Draymond and Clay.
And if I'm them, I'm not breaking up the Splash Brothers. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the selfish fan in me wants Clay and Steph to stay together as long as they play, because just those guys playing off of each other is just so much fun to watch. But at the same time, when Draymond is not on the floor, that defense isn't as good as they are now. So
Right.
I mean,